At the international desk, what did he do and who did he tell? Donald Trump's former campaign aide pleads guilty to lying about contacts with Russia. The Catalan leader says he's not seeking asylum in Belgium and retracing the last steps of the soldiers killed in Niger. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. We begin with the White House on edge after 2 new indictments and 1 guilty plea in the special counsel's Russia investigation. And that admission of guilt, an unexpected bombshell in Robert Mueller's probe, starts to lay out evidence of possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Jessica Schneider explains the charges and the impact they could have moving forward.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's office unsealing documents that show former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor George Papadopoulos has been cooperating with investigators since his arrest in July. Papadopoulos pleading guilty earlier this month to lying to the FBI about his contact with Russia, including a meeting with a London professor who told him in April 2016 that the Kremlin had obtained dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's email was hacked by Russians the month before.
Papadopoulos is direct evidence that someone with the campaign was being contacted by Russians.
Papadopoulos' plea agreement describes his testimony as a roadmap to the ongoing investigation, noting that there is a large-scale ongoing investigation of which Papadopoulos is a small part. The document describes Papadopoulos as a proactive cooperator, suggesting that for the last 3 months, he may have been providing the FBI with information about other Trump campaign associates or even wearing a wire. The plea agreement outlines Papadopoulos' extensive efforts to establish a connection between Russian officials and the Trump campaign, informing then-campaign chairman Paul Manafort in May that the Russians were interested in meeting with candidate Trump. Manafort forwarded the email to his deputy, Rick Gates, writing, "Let's discuss. We need someone to communicate that DT is not doing these trips. It should be someone low-level in the campaign so as not to send any signal." In July, Papadopoulos reached out to a foreign contact saying that a meeting has been approved from our side. Days later, WikiLeaks began releasing the emails hacked from the DNC, and Trump made these infamous remarks.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
The following month, a Trump campaign supervisor, identified by the Washington Post as former Trump campaign national co-chairman Sam Clovis, told Papadopoulos, "I would encourage you," and another foreign policy advisor, to make the trip if it is feasible. Clovis's lawyer telling the Post that he actually opposed the trip and was just being polite.
There is no evidence that Mr. Manafort or the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government.
Papadopoulos' interviews with federal investigators likely contributing to the charges brought against both Manafort and Gates, who pleaded not guilty on 12 counts Monday, including conspiracy against the United States, conspiracy to launder money, and 7 counts of failure to file reports of foreign bank and financial accounts.
Well, Jessica Schneider reporting there. And as you heard in Jessica's report, the mention of a foreign contact who interacted with George Papadopoulos. There's new information today on who that contact may be. CNN's international diplomatic editor, Nic Robertson, joins me now from London. And Nic, we heard in those court documents the mention of a mysterious professor. You and the team have been digging. What have you found?
So I've been talking to a source here about a professor of diplomacy based in London, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Misford. My source tells me that Joseph Misford introduced him, the source, to George Papadopoulos about the middle of April last year. These details, of course, matching a time frame that's become apparent from the newly released yesterday affidavit. So my source says in his meeting with George Papadopoulos, Papadopoulos presented himself as a foreign policy advisor for President Trump, wanting to sort of, explain to different governments, what President Trump meant by some of the things he was saying while he was still candidate Trump. The source tells me that he found Papadopoulos to be a nice guy, but, you know, in the details of their conversation, he really found him to be sort of out of his depth on foreign policy issues. There were things that he was saying that didn't really sort of show that Papadopoulos really understood a lot of the details of what he was discussing. The source also says about this professor, Joseph Misford. At the same time, this Professor Misford was telling the source that he had, you know, contacts with Russians. He was the source describes it as sort of bragging about the level of contacts that he had with Russians, saying that, you know, that he'd said, Misford had said that he'd even had dinner with President Putin and others as part of a group. But he also said, Misford also told the source that they, meaning the Russians, had a bunch of stuff about Hillary Clinton. You know, he didn't go into the details about what that stuff was, but this was all coming at the same time that Papadopoulos was meeting this professor in London. The professor introduces my source to Papadopoulos. So it's certainly building a picture of who the professor may indeed have been.
And is it likely, Nick, that the professor will be called on by the FBI for more information, or is it possible that he's already been in contact with the FBI?
You know, it's really not clear at the moment. You would think that somebody who's been ostensibly, it appears, in direct contact with George Papadopoulos. It's somebody who has a relationship with Papadopoulos enough to recommend him to meet the source that I know to speak about, you know, foreign issues. That Misford had pro-Russian feelings and sentiments, certainly expressed those. It would certainly seem that the FBI, it would be a natural call for them to want to talk to him. Now, have they done that? Has there already been a conversation? Is this part of a process that's underway? We just don't know at the moment. But it would seem, in the context of everything that we're beginning to learn and the picture that begins to fill out, this is someone who's presenting information of the type that you would expect the FBI and this investigation to want to drill down a lot more on.
Certainly a fascinating story. Some great digging there by you and the team. Nic Robertson, thank you very much.